You're listening to the No Shot Podcast, where we discuss sports, true stories, and mental health. Brought to you by True Victory Apparel, Hillside Productions, and Radio Influence. Let's get after it.
Welcome back to the No Shot Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Santarelli, here with my co-host, T-Mike and Chopstick.
Hey, let it eat.
What's going down? What's going down, America, world? Welcome back to the No Shot Podcast. Today's episode, we're sticking with the mental health concept, but we're going to dig even deeper into some kind of negative thoughts. You know what I'm talking about? So when it comes to what we're doing here today, we're always trying to get in control of life, right? We're always trying to find some way, shape, or form to get control of what's in front of us, whether it be our health, whether it be our sports, whether it be our academics, or whatever the case might be. But how do we learn how to cope with things that we do not have control over? Those external factors that, unfortunately, regardless of what we do, we can't get a hold of them. We can't do it. But before we jump in on that, as always, we got Duffs. Send it, Chop.
Let's hear it.
Coping. Coping is defined as the thoughts and behaviors mobilized to manage internal and external stressful situations.
Thoughts and behaviors that are mobilized to control external and external behaviors.
So they got wheels.
They got wheels. Things are rolling left to right. Now, I got to admit, when it comes to coping with things that are outside of our control, they're very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do. When you see circumstances that you've been attempting to control just totally fall out of your hands, you lose control over them, and then you literally have to let the pieces fall where they may.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that point on...
And then you got to be okay with where they lay.
Right. And even if I'm not okay with where they lay, I've got to deal with them wherever they laid.
Yeah.
Because they're not going away. I still got to deal with them. Now, we can imagine how that must feel mentally for an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Good example for an athlete, right? You're a baller. You do what you do. You straight hoop all the time. You come up, easy layup, on deck. Defender comes flying up on your left side. Your left knee is up. That defender's knee drives right into the side of your left knee.
Ooh, that sounds painful.
Yeah.
You go flying into the wall. You hop up, you fall down. You get up again, you fall down again. Your knee starts to swell. You're leading scorer on this team. They need you. But you just experienced the worst injury you could possibly experience. You know what happened. ACL, gone. Meniscal tear, ACL. You go to the doctor, they tell you you're out 6-7 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then from that point on, you don't know if you're ever going to be the same again as an athlete. You have no idea what's going to happen. External factors that were outside of your control that end up changing your life. How do we learn to deal with circumstances like that?
Yeah. But like the thing is that we always, excuse me, we always try to control those external factors. And then we kind of like rehash and like, oh, well, if I did this differently, then there would have been a different circumstance.
Yeah, but what do we do when it happens? Like, it's already done. Like, how do we learn to deal with these things, gentlemen? Like, y'all can't leave me hanging on this. Where do we go? Like, this is opinion, and this is real talk. Like, when somebody shuts down, where do we go to find peace or to find rehab or to get back into a mental place to where now I believe I could come back better?
I think a lot of people just waller.
Mm-hmm. So what's interesting in Kobe Bryant's on a whole different level than most people, okay? He, out of 18 years playing for the NBA, he only missed like 112 games, which
incredible
is that's not a lot of games. So he often played through injuries, and his reason being was the fans. His motivation was the fans, because he was like, what if that family that's been saving up, 5 months just to be able to afford to come and sit in the nosebleeds to watch me play this one game. I want to be here for them. He had that motivation to keep playing, albeit he had an injury that was out of his control.
So external motivator that hits you hard in the heart.
Yeah.
that drives you to continue to fight, to balance out, to rehab, just so you can execute again. Because you're right, there's such a crazy high level of value in that moment to where you look up into the stands and you see that cardboard piece of paper being held by a little 7-year-old kid with your number, with your name. Maybe they drew a little face, you know what I mean? But they're your biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason they're there is because of you. The lights can be shut off, and if the only one that was standing on the court was you, they're not moving.
Yeah, and I think it has to be a collaboration of external and internal motivations. It's not just one. And I know we just did an episode on this a while ago, but external motivations aren't always bad. They're not always negative.
Right.
I think they're very important.
Sure.
But internal motivations need to be a factor in that. If you don't have something like inside you saying, all right, I got to keep going for this reason, you're not going to have a reason to keep going.
I love what you just said there. That was actually one of the dopest things you've ever said, Spencer. So with that in mind, though, we still have to understand the anguish that comes along with all of this.
Right.
Like,
Now, of course, Kobe had all the resources in the world to be able to not feel the injury as much, to be able to perform somewhat. What about little Jimmy that doesn't have those resources and he's fighting every bit that he can to earn a scholarship?
that's real talk. That's real talk. That's where hope is being ripped away from little Jimmy. Because in the end, they understood that, wait a minute, I've got the skills to be here. But now these circumstances that I had no control over are about to change my life. What did I do to deserve all of this? What did I do? All I did was grind. All I did was show everybody that I belonged here. Mm-hmm. That's all I ever did. And then out of nowhere, this mud trucker comes up and hits me illegally and takes me out. How do I cope with that? Who helps me cope with that?
Yeah, I think you have to have a support system around you. You have to have people that are going to be in your corner when things are not going the way that you want. I just listened to Caleb Wagner's story, where a college was like, "Yeah, we want to bring you on."
Yeah,
and then like they found out he had one arm and they dropped him the next week.
Yeah,
and it's like, why? Like, you
shout out to Army.
You
dropped
liked
the ball there, Army. Real talk.
But you liked how I was performing. But before you found that out, it didn't affect my performance. And you were like, yeah, we want to bring you on. But then you found out this factor and it changed your perception of me to the point that you didn't think I could deliver.
Yes. And there's everything wrong with that. There's everything wrong with that. So emotionally, that can take you one way or the other. We lose hope, we fall apart, we break down, it's a done deal. Or we rise up, we grind, we keep climbing with one arm or two. It don't matter because I am a warrior and I will not fail. I will not quit and I will not die.
So one of my favorite athletes from history, I actually wrote a book report on him when I was in high school, is Eric Liddell.
Eric Liddell.
Do you know who he is?
yes.
All right, like that guy was a dog.
Yes.
Now, he was one of the fastest guys in the world at the time, and so he eventually was put in a Korean concentration camp or something, and he realized that there was a need for some kind of physical activity in the concentration camp. So
Right.
they allowed him to start refereeing and having games.
I remember this.
And sometimes he would play. He played until he played until he couldn't play anymore. Then he was refereeing. And then he got to the point where he couldn't even get out of bed. He ended up dying in that concentration camp. But he went till he didn't have anything left. But he gave a lot of people a reason to keep living.
And that's something that we have to take into account. What type of human being, what type of intrinsic motivation does it take to bring you to that place to where you can give that much of yourself when it seems like all hope is lost? When it seems like you can't cope anymore.
Even if we disagree Do you think that people giving up is a way to cope?
Say that one more time.
Even if we disagree here,
Yes.
or even if this particular person disagrees, do you think that giving up is a way to cope?
I don't think it's coping.
I do agree it is a way of coping.
Okay. How so?
The only reason I agree with it is because if you think about it, ultimately most people are very weak-minded. Most people do not know how to deal with failure in a very minuscule, just minuscule way, Half the time when people experience failure in the lightest of ways after they've put in effort into something, their immediate thought process is to stop. This is no longer worth it. I've given effort and this is what I get for my efforts. I'm going to go sit down because I'm upset and I quit. But that intrinsic motivator that says I'm allowing myself to fail and to grow and to expand upon this failure and growth will allow me to continue to ramp up and ramp forward. But yes, it is a coping method because people utilize it all the time.
So is it like doing nothing is doing something?
Absolutely right. Yes, ding dong, hot dog. So with that in mind, we're going to look at 7 tips for how to cope with things. Tip number 1.
Okay.
No.
Be aware of your feelings.
Huh.
What? I have feelings?
If this is the first step to coping, I have not learned it yet.
All right.
Of course, our introverted child has
I feel like
failed.
this is an intervention.
It is. It
Of
just
course,
rolled
you're
in.
feeling that this is an intervention. That's
But in the end, if we're actually just simply aware, we're not necessarily dealing with the feeling, but we're aware of its existence. It allows us to go through the process of processing.
I'm aware that I have feelings. I just don't know what those feelings are.
You need therapy.
Well,
Number 2, notice your mindset. So again, you're in a situation where you feel hopeless. Look at where your mind has effectively been placed, right? You see only this, even though there's a lot of other options going on. There's way more to actually pay attention to. Even though your mind is psychologically locked in on one aspect of what's happening to you, and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel or on the sides of the tunnel, it's incredible the way the mind works, especially when it experiences negativity. But it does the same thing with positivity, right? When you've done something really, really well and everybody's praising you for it. And what do you think about you? I'm pretty dope, right?
So I have a question for you then with that. Do you think it's better to be an optimist or a realist?
I'm very optimistic, but I can be real
All
sometimes.
right. Well, here's the thing with optimism. Optimism will be beaten down. With enough negativity, optimism will be beaten down.
Yeah.
Realism is like, all right, things are terrible right now, and they might not get better.
Yeah. And realism kind of comes off as being pessimistic.
I don't think that's fair, but I see your point.
But it does.
But it isn't.
But it isn't.
Right.
It's both? What?
No, it's not both.
No, being real is just
It's
being
not both.
real. But for
Yeah.
most people, like to always try to see the silver lining, always try to be optimistic. And so when someone is real and be like, well, there might not be a silver lining here, and this is a negative, that they're looked as a pessimist at that point.
He's
Yeah.
not wrong, but at the same time, real definitely recognizes real. Yeah, y'all knew I was going to drop that line.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why that line makes sense. Really just think about this, and let's be clear. When you look at reality for what it is, you can use relative truth, or you can just be honest with yourself. You can say, these are my circumstances, and from that point on, you can make your move accordingly. But if you never recognize the real for what it actually is, and you keep making up these stories in your head to try and get around the truth, how are you ever going to learn to cope with reality so you can move accordingly?
Right. You know, I took I took this mental health class in high school, and we actually had a guy that come in that worked at a psych ward, and he had these like women like come in that they were just like so actually all kinds of people that were just so disassociated from reality that they refused to accept things the way they actually were. And they had convinced themselves that something entirely illogical was true. And they refused to believe what was true. And they were stuck there. And they thought they were sick, or they needed some type of medication, or there was something wrong with them. And they just refused to get out of that mindset because they were so convinced that what they believed was true.
And that leads us to our sponsor, True Victory Apparel. If you aren't perfect, this is the perfect brand for you. If you've ever struggled, if you've ever failed, if you've ever been the underdog, if you've ever doubted yourself or been doubted by others, this is the perfect brand for you. If you want to get be better, and make our world better, this is the perfect brand for you. Founded by U.S. military veterans and first responders, True Victory is a sportswear and streetwear brand dedicated to building everyday champions on and off the field. We're not simply a company, we're a cause. Our purpose is to transform lives and elevate humanity through the power and unity of sports, positive stories, and serving others. Our hope is to one day be the world's most trusted, inspirational, and generous brand. We're dedicated to the game, the grind, and the globe. But most importantly, we're dedicated to you. That's what it means to be always true. Go visit TrueVictory.com. That is www.TrueVictory.com to find the dopest, freshest merch on the face of the planet, owned by a veteran and first responder-owned company. When you get to the website, use discount code Aaron Solano. That is ARRONSOLANO at checkout. Once again, that is Aaron Solano at checkout. Thank you, True Victory, for being a sponsor of the No Shot Podcast. Send it back to you, Santa.
All right, so I got another question for you guys, and this might be a little bit on the personal side, but
Getting personal.
So like think about like the worst pain you. What?
Huh?
All right, so think about like some of the worst pain you've ever had to struggle with, like whether it was mental or physical or whatever. Like, how did you get out of it? And are you still there?
You know something? I'm going to swing this right into Chop immediately.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we've talked about this on a previous podcast. In fact, talking about mental beatdowns. There was a young lady that Chop really had
You just rode that segue.
Yeah, man. Chop had a young lady that he was talking to, like, for real. And, he had hope. My dog had hope. Does he have hope now? I'm going to let him explain everything to you and how he's coping with it.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. Love that.
Send that, big dog. People are interested.
I'm sure. I'm very interesting. Yeah, no, it didn't work out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no. So I finally, got the courage to ask this girl out. And she was like, oh, I would love to go out as friends.
Man, she was playing defense.
Oh, that hurt.
I wouldn't, but
shout out to Jay Floyd. Even he reacted just then.
I wouldn't even say that that was the worst thing I've experienced.
But how are you coping with that rejection?
With that, well,
use your words.
Being by myself, coping was not really something that I was going to be able to do. So I had to find positivity in others. I've had, friends and family members kind of, hype me up. Be like, it's okay. She just wasn't meant to be and all that. And
sure.
And, yeah, it sounds nice, but it still, doesn't feel nice.
Yeah, been there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like real talk, when it comes to Chop, whether you guys know it or not, he's actually a very handsome young man. So, ladies, he's still available. Congratulations. But with that in mind, that level of rejection is brutal, especially once you've invested your heart
Honestly,
and your emotions.
I think I would have rather just been rejected totally than friend-zoned.
Ooh, it's true, because friend zone is brutal.
Yeah.
Because that's them saying they're still willing to be around you, even though you had that tingly feeling inside
It's like
that draws you towards them?
it's like you tell a baby, no, you can't have this candy, but I'm gonna hold it right here in front of your face.
Yes, literally. No candy for you.
I will let
baby.
you smell the candy.
Yes. Candy has a weird smell, though.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
But yeah, that's yeah.
like
well,
strange,
my
fake
situation was
sugar and
more
all
like
that.
a cold, like
Nice.
yeah.
Straight up karate chop the table there. Nice.
Actually, to a point, I was like kind of built up and then like dropped.
So how did you learn to deal with it? How did you learn to cope with it?
A lot of crying.
Whole lot of tears were shed.
Yeah. No, but like, I think it's like, oh man, it's so hard to like show that level of emotion.
It is.
And you're like, I gotta hide everything inside and bottle it up and never let it out.
Yeah. Now, real talk. I'm not trying to. I don't know. That's never happened to me.
Say that with a straight face, Mark?
Yeah, it's never happened to me. Real talk. I've never experienced that before in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I haven't.
No.
Like
I believe you.
I could have. A girl could have cheated on me. I don't know, but I've never experienced that emotion of being dropped and feeling hopeless.
Yeah, but
And just being
I mean,
tossed up.
it's
That's terrible.
yeah, but like, how do you, I guess, get through that and still like come out, like, all right, it's gonna be okay. It's not right now, but it will be okay.
Well, in the end, I can say this from the outside looking in, but we all know these people don't have the ability to tell you who you are. They don't have the ability to just define who you are. They don't have even the ability to designate your next move in your life.
Or like, let's kind of change it away from like maybe the relationship aspect, and maybe like you're working a
Why?
job.
Because you're tired of talking about it because it hurts.
No, I want to put it like another application.
No, you
but
know
like,
you're feeling squishy.
It's still sensitive.
but like,
It still hurts.
maybe you're working a job, and then your boss is like, "Yeah, you're pretty worthless."
Golly. Oh my gosh. That's when you look at him. How could you be so heartless?
Like, this is the best job you're ever gonna get.
So funny story.
Of course, Chop has a story. Of course, he has a story with this.
As being somebody's boss, I had this employee who basically was worthless. I didn't say it.
Oh
I did
my
not tell him
gosh.
this. And I will not name names.
I do not condone what Chop just said on the No Shop podcast. Calling
were-
people worthless
Not as a human being, but as an employee.
Sure.
I did not benefit in the slightest with her working for me.
The
company did not benefit.
laughing at that?
So basically, I kind of like, I didn't fire her. I actually asked her to sign the letter of resignation. And
And she was cool with it?
she was cool with it, and she just, she was gone. So,
And she was gone. And just like
Man. But like,
that, she was gone.
yeah, it can be painful to be on both ends. To be like, all right, this is not working. Something's
what's
got to
funny
change.
is, at first she was like, all like, am I getting fired? And then like 5 minutes later, okay, this girl was kind of crazy. 5 minutes later, she's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. You guys are going to miss me. I was such a great employee. And yeah, this girl was crazy.
Wow, that's
Cray,
a
cray.
change.
Cray, cray.
That is a change of emotion.
Yeah, I would have been
That
like,
is-
man, you a transformer.
And then she was like thanking me. She was thanking me as she was leaving.
She was a Decepticon. Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Full of deception.
Yeah, but like, you're gonna go through pain your whole life. Especially as an athlete, you're gonna work to get something, and your hopes might be dashed on the rocks.
Right. So getting back to
Like-
those points of hope being dashed and it being outside of your control, I'm going to go ahead and read the last 5 points. I'm just going to read them in order so we can actually get the ball rolling and not take up too much time. Number 3, focus on what you actually can control. And we can all relate to that particular point. Point number 4, spend time doing things that are meaningful to you. Because once we actually reestablish meaning, that hopeless feeling kind of dissipates. Number 5, look for sources of stress you can limit. Now, I'm going to expound upon that just a little bit more because there are things that are stressful in our lives regardless of what we're going to do. They're part of everyday life. But ultimately, we can find ways to cope and then generalize and maybe bubble up some of those stresses is a corny way of putting it. And in the end, we can find ourselves being able to limit our distress with the stressors that we have in everyday life. Number 6, take more breaks.
Are you saying go on vacation more?
They do it in Europe all the time, man. Like everybody out there in Europe, we have butt naked on beaches chilling half the time anyway.
There's actually, tons of studies showing that people that will take a good solid break from social media and just your phone entirely often have some of the calmest stress levels.
That's why I like hiking so much. Just going out in the wilderness and at the risk of dying. And
oh my gosh,
I almost fell off the mountain.
Yeah, I know you almost fell off a mountain.
I mean, but it's just so much. I don't know. It's so freeing to just go out there.
But that's less stressful than what you feel because of what people say.
Yeah,
about you.
I'm able to. Well, yeah.
But isn't that interesting that you would rather go hiking in the woods where you can get malaria from mosquitoes or fall off a mountain than deal all the time 24/7 with caring about what people think about you?
Yeah. Yeah, and but I love breaking away and just I don't know, cooking fish I just caught in the morning.
Right, but that's a wonderful way to cope with everyday general circumstances. But ultimately, that doesn't pull you away from the truth in life. Effectively, you're going to have to go back.
I think it pulls you closer to the truth.
Expound upon that, Santa.
We have all these distractions. We have our phones. We have our jobs. We have people that, we have to stay in contact with and, keep up with and we have all these things pulling us in all these directions. And then we're like, all right, if I can just break away from that, all right, now I can focus on what's really important. All right, what are the things that I need to make better, about myself? What are the things that I need to focus on and be all right, this is an issue that, I really need to correct in my personal life. And you can kind of have clarity to think about those things and be wow, I have not been a great person lately.
Top billing. Number 7, and lastly, be sure your coping strategies are actually helpful. Just like Josh explained, don't go into another coping strategy that's not actually going to not generate stress, or it is going to generate more stress. We want to be in a position to where our coping strategy draws peace, clarity, and just a relatively calm state of mind. But we're moving on because trivia time has just hit. It is time for
trivia.
Hurry up.
All right, here you go. All right, question. What coach of the bench got off his team to play in the Stanley Cup? So this is hockey. So what coach got off the bench to play, to take the place of an injured player in the game to win the Stanley Cup?
Thank you for the clarity in regards to that question because I was lost. And what are our options?
All right. This is Lester Patrick, John P. Riley Jr., Mike Milbury.
I like John P. Riley Jr. That sounds good to me.
You know what? Lester Patrick just sounds like a hockey name, like a gritty hockey name. I'm going with Les.
Mike, you are killing it.
Let's go. That's 2 wins.
This was in 1960.
Thank you for letting us know, because I didn't know. Let's go.
Never heard of a Lester.
Yeah, this was when they were still taking photos in black and white.
On to Gen Pub.
Gen Pub.
Thank you for the bumper music, A-Town. Appreciate you. So, once again, when it comes to coping can be incredibly difficult. And I mean incredibly difficult. There's so many outside sources that stop us from being able to cope, to where in which we can't see reality for what it truly is. Regardless of what's going on in your life, you have an opportunity to make a change. Yes, there are things that will happen that are outside of your control, and there's nothing you can do about that. But that doesn't leave you helpless. There are options. Think, feel, draw deeper into your spirit. Understand that your value isn't all jammed up into what you cannot control, but what you can control. This has been the No Shot Podcast, brought to you by the brand True Victory Apparel, Radio Influence, and Hillside Production. Santa, send it back, hey.
This has been the No Shot Podcast. Go check out the brand at truevictory.com and then go support the cast by rating us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.